Shut this down, Mark, get on. You can? I see him.
Oh, he's on the minute. I'm done.
She is. Oh, there she is.
Commissioner Ross, I think you just talked to Commissioner Ross.
I did, he said he was gonna go Zoom. He thought it was tomorrow.
Well, we just passed starting time, so we will begin and he can join us in progress. This meeting of the Public Safety and Infrastructure Committee of the Grand Forks County Commission will come to order. We'll dispense with most of the formalities of a regular commission meeting, even though all five of us, we think, will be here by Zoom or otherwise. This is simply a committee meeting, and it'll be different from some of the situations where the people in the audience have more opportunity to speak. This topic will be coming up at a commission meeting in the near future, I'm sure. And we'd like to begin, I think, with Mr. Ford. I should first say that Commissioner Hagan is on Zoom, Commissioner Rust, Commissioner Peach and I are in the room, and we are expecting that Commissioner Rust is.
He is still on there.
He's on, yeah.
Okay, good. I've got everybody here. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Mr. Ford. He has been compiling information concerning the discussion that we held with the city concerning the parking ramp. He's been talking to the employees, the chairs of the various departments, and lots of other people. And this committee meeting is essentially a fact-finding commission, or the committee meeting to determine what the facts are with respect to shade of the parking ramp and what we're going to do about it. So, Mr. Ford.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Just to summarize where we're at, identified significant repairs in the Grand Forks County South Central parking ramp. Upon going through those findings from 82S, the commission asked if the city was particularly interested in applying the ramp and bringing it under their management plan. Some back and forth, and I should mention Mr. Clement from 82S is here, and Mr. Phelan is also here from the city of Grand Forks. The city, from a city council standpoint, it looks like there is some interest. As long as the county were to either provide the funds to make the identified necessary repairs or make the repairs first. And then talk about a potential property swap for the property on 4th, the vacant property. After the last commission meeting, per request of the commission, I did visit with the department head. I did visit with the employees association as well. And what I found, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, is currently we have 338 parking spots. Currently 128 are reserved. We have a mix of 24/7, and we have a mix of Monday through Friday, 7 to 5 p.m. Also within that mix, we have fleet from human services and human service zone. So the zone has 7 spaces for fleet. Northeast has 24 for fleet. We do have some downtown business owners leasing 4 spaces. Center Inc. leases 4 spaces. The Community Violence Intervention Center leases 7. Public Health, which may be relocated in the short term, possibly, is 7 spaces. We have downtown residents leasing 13 spaces. And of course, 12 ADA spaces. However, those numbers do not reflect county services, courthouse services, clientele, jury parking, or other public service parking. Third level of the parking ramp is open and free. And we have 31 free 2-hour parking spaces on the first level. Also, in some of the discussions, department heads and employee association, Ms. Leon reached out and asked some of the more client-facing departments, kind of an average of clientele they serve a day that may be driving downtown. For court administration, clerk of courts on the high end, about 80 a day, low end about 27 a day. Human service zone on the high end, about 125 a day. Northeast Human Services on a high end, about 50 a day. Total visitors throughout the day on the high end is about 260, on the low end is about 150, and that's the referring to that public services and courthouse and COB clientele. I've been receiving quite a few concerns, and I've done my best to forward those on to the commission from the Employees Association and department heads, and I know some of the other department heads have sent those concerns on to the portfolio commissioner as well. The most common three concerns I'm hearing from employees and department heads are not enough, there might not be enough parking spaces for services, employees, and fleet altogether. The price, the possible price going up. Currently, employees pay $35 a month. So there's concern about those costs going up, especially to clientele, vulnerable population, underrepresented population. Some of the concerns I've heard from the zone and Northeast, and talking with City of Grand Forks administration, for 2 hours, they use like a passport parking. You download that on your iPhone, and that's how you do it. Their clientele don't have phones, so how would they use those? And so a lot of the consensus among staff and department heads, they would prefer to see the county commission hold on to the parking ramp, make the additional or the necessary repairs, come up with a long-term plan, and have that ramp remain under county ownership. To refresh the commission, the city has offered 200 spots for county use. And definitely we would see an increase in parking permit fees, just because the ramp, it needs some revenue to come in and make the ongoing maintenance and repair. Whatever the county commission decides to do with the ramp, whether it's hold on to it or engage in the property swap with the city, it would be staff recommendation that if it is held on to by the county, that the parking fees are revisited anyways. It's just the reality of the situation and where we're at with the ongoing repairs and the need repairs and how much the county subsidizes the ramp. So that's it in a nutshell, Mr. Chair, what I found at the commission's request, and it's a very high level summary. I won't give it over back to the chair for any questions there might be.
Well, you've asked Mr. Clevin to be here today, and he's here, so maybe he could make a presentation of the comparisons and the status of the ramp and what are to help us with our options.
And I did, Mr. Chair, while we wait for Mr. Clevin, he did send me a bullet point review of the difference between the two assessments, and I laid those on your desk amongst any of the other sheets in your packet.
So with regrets, I don't have a presentation. But I will kind of summarize, I guess matters of some facts, some opinions, some engineering conclusions. And I will start by reference to the email Mr. Ford referenced. On Wednesday of last week, we were asked to review work product by various parties. Primarily AE Trust working in conjunction with the consultant Walker Consultants and a report that the city had commissioned. Collaborative Design Group, my acronym is CDG, I hope I get their full name right. And so the first thing is, the two reports don't really vary from the essence of the issue. Both reports say immediate repairs are needed. Both say that the most important of those repairs are flange connectors. And we've all hopefully been in the ramp to see for ourselves, whether it's specifically to become informed or just as users. Right, that ramp is a series of 8-10 foot wide lengths of precast panel. And where they join at their sides, there's a series of steel connectors that, about 8 foot on center. Those connectors are regular old carbon steel, unprotected, and exposure to what water itself, and worse, water with de-icing salt solutions, they corrode. And in fact, that's what's happening. And so when you drive over the ramp, you get little bumps every time your wheel crosses over. That's because those connectors are failing. When they're functioning, you might feel the tire roll over an uneven surface, but you don't get that clunk on that repetitive interval. So the summary of that is both reports are saying those connectors are the most important repair to make. And then after that, there's another series of repairs and maintenance and all that. But those connectors are the bulk of the cost. And it's really those connectors that show the variance on how the two engineering reports would recommend solving the problem. And with that, that's where the cost variance comes from. Having done a few of these myself, having Walker done hundreds of these, we recommend a cast steel, stainless steel connector. It's a standard of care. When you're doing the best job possible, that's what an engineer is gonna prefer. CDG uses another technology which has worked with success. But talking with Walker, they've actually had to go back in and repair those sort of, I use the phrase biscuit. It's a piece of carbon fiber that you slot into the edge of the concrete, you glue it in place. And then that provides the connector so you don't get the bumps when you drive. Well, Walker's had to go back in and fix those. Cause the adhesive bond, picture trying to glue wood glue, you don't get the surface prep perfect, right? That wood glue kind of comes apart pretty quick. So that's really what's going on, is those bond failures with the glue, difficult to get done right. Very subject to workmanship, temperature and substrate. So that's the difference of opinion. Both can be viable technologies. One's more robust than the other, one costs more than the other. That really is the biggest fundamental difference of the two evaluations. There has been a third report, also written by another local structural engineer. And it was brief, kind of kept to the high level of evaluation. And they also came to the same conclusion that, hey, repairs are needed. They didn't go into much technical input on it. I think his report frankly said, it's not something we do a lot. So kind of kept all the details, which I think was completely proper. Neither report would be wrong per se. But as often is the case on technical matters, there can be a difference of opinion on solution. So that's really kind of where it's at. As far as comparison of published documents you have in your record. Now, the structure itself, we could repeat multitudes of previous reports. The condition, it's not getting better. Days like today, in fact, I'm pretty sure if we went out there today, you got some freeze, you got some thawing, you'll find other chunks of concrete laying in the ground. It's still not in a condition where it's unsafe for occupancy. But surely those nuisance occurrences of water leakage, it's not gonna diminish. It's only gonna continue to get worse. It's not summarized here, but to repeat, one of the conclusions that A.T.U.S. and Walker had come with is the cost curve of that degradation. We're kind of on that upward slope where it's no longer a same sort of incremental change in condition per year. It's kind of non-linear at this point. So the longer we wait, the more repairs have to happen, the sooner they have to happen, the more expensive they're gonna cost. So we're really in that tail end where conditions will decrease pretty rapidly. That's based on experience of the industry on these things. And CDG kind of came to the same general conclusion, different form of documentation, but they kind of said something like, yeah, it's gonna continue to get worse. So really, that's kind of, I leave it at that, it's a fundamental point right now. Whatever happens on the policy of operations and contracting and all that. Just from my role as an advisory role for technical matters. We're still at the point where action is gonna have to be taken. You know, that's just kind of the fundamental where we're at right now. With there's options to do the most important things first. The lesser things later. But that first fundamental act of repairing the connectors would be the recommendation at this time.
What's that cost?
Itself as a single line item, sir, I don't remember that. Just for reference, our initial report on this, the full suite of all repairs that we deem necessary in the short term, and again, there was a 2-year phasing on that. Was $3.5 million. 3.24. Within there, the phasing of it, I don't have that detail with me. It's not gonna be a lot less. Cause those connectors. they're Stainless steel, and there's a lot of them, and there's a lot of work to go to put in and properly retrofit them. So I couldn't promise you some silver bullet short-term savings. It's probably closer to the 3.2 than it is the 1. You know, but without any other detail on that, it's probably the most accurate range I can give you right now.
Mr. Jerry. The first 2-year cycle projects was 3.24, phased over 2 years. Now this is 2020, I believe, or 2019. Or so phased over 2 years, 1.62. And then total project cost for the 20-year maintenance cycle through 2045 would be 3 million. Or about 170 each year, but that wouldn't factor in inflation.
Yeah, those reports from those dollar figures from 2022 are all net present worth. No time value, no escalator, just put it on an initial cost basis and then year on year. Plan for whatever, you know, construction cost increases we're seeing, which have somewhat normalized. They're not 0 year on year, but it's not 20%. You know, we're estimating 3-5% per year right now.
Questions from commissioners? Mr. Beach? Commissioner Hagan, I see you're there. Yeah, have any questions for Mr. Love?
Not yet, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Watson, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Not really a question per se, just something to keep in mind as we have this discussion. Is that the unrelated to the parking ramp, but the grandstands were inspected and need some repairs as well, which we already knew, but it's just something to keep in mind as we talk about what we can afford to do here.
All right. I have a question for either Mr. Ford, I think. I'm not a little unclear on what would have happened to take care of our clients and employees and others who come into the COB if the city changes the method of payment, like no free spaces or whatever else. What do they offer? What's the city offering in terms of free space? And are there, I know there was talk of hourly charges perhaps, but that doesn't seem very workable to me. So can you explain what you think the offer is?
I can, and Mr. Phelan is here too to fact check me. So the city was offering 200 reserve spots for county use. And then the city, they're hourly, this is just an assumption I'm making. If the city were to take operational management to the ramp, I would assume their hourlies would. In their other ramps would reflect what are water in the county, what would be in the county. So the first 2 hours are free. And then the 2 to 4 hours, $3, 4 to 6 hours is $5, and then all day is $8. Looking at the central parking ramp, general spaces are $55 a month, 24/7, reserve spaces are $120 a month.
I've got a good question though, on the hourly rates, how would they be collected? Would there be live people taking cash or credit cards? Or would it be, virtual through phones? What
Mr. Felix can correct me if I'm wrong, but the two other parking ramps utilize passport parking. So each section of a ramp, you see at UND as well, there's zones. So if I were to park in a certain zone on the first level of the parking ramp, that would be zone 220. So on my iPhone, I would open up the passport parking app, put in my license plate, credit card, and that I'm in zone 220. And then the clock starts ticking, if you will. So if I come do my business and it takes me 30 minutes, I get back to my vehicle, go back into the app, basically you're done and drive away. That's how they keep track of it, is through a smartphone app.
I have been reading emails from various departments in the county. And I think they're very correct in thinking that a lot of our clients, whether it's veterans, whether it's social services, or other people, are not going to have smartphones to be able to accomplish this kind of method. Is there no provision for someone paying for the hourly rate to someone who takes the ticket?
I'm not, Mr. Chair, I do not know. I do not know. But what I can say though, to your point,
Feel free to fact check us when you. If there's something, because I'm curious about that one. I don't know how we would possibly handle that for the people who we serve in this building.
Oh, County Commission and Sharing, my name is Todd Dillon, I'm the city administrator for Grand Forks. I don't think we've gone down to all the bloody details on those, so I think those would be all in the reports. Similar to if you were at Alaris or Brady Marts in the corporate center, you could set aside some parking for your customers, we'll say free parking. Obviously, that would be part of Brady Marts is gonna be, even though it's free, Brady Marts is gonna pay for theirs, Alaris is gonna pay for their customer parking. But if there are some exceptions to the rule, we know that not everyone has a smartphone, so we would work for those particulars, but. Again, there'd be nothing free, so that if you want customer parking or whomever parking for free, we would look to have someone pay for that. It work with you on where you want it located and all those particulars. Generally, the ramps are during business hours and then after hours. After 5 are free and open to the public, except for those spots that are reserved. As Mr. Ford said, 24/7. There are some 24/7 folks that are willing to pay the upper tier. But generally, if you're willing to roam in a ramp, after hours, those spots that are not reserved are used by the general public, and it kind of works out well because we have daytime parking, and then at nighttime when we have all the things going on downtown, it allows us to be able to provide parking in those areas. We're also doing that with our own city lots, and I know you're doing with your ramp here too, is that we're allowing after 5 to park in this city's surface lots. And in the parking is gonna get even tougher around City Hall when Franklin on 4th is open here later this year.
Mr. Beach, you have a question?
I do have a question. In all due respect, Mr. Phelan, to you and to the city of Grand Forks, why? Why do you've got 2 parking ramps now? They're loss leaders. I mean, they cost you money. Why do you want a 3rd one, and why do you wanna buy it from the county?
I asked myself that same question. So, again, I'm here as a representative from the city of Grand Forks, right? Just so you know that, so I think the reason why is it's a potential opportunity not to do a purchase, a swap, we're not purchasing per se. And look at an opportunity if we could integrate this ramp with the other two ramps longer term. So I think it was in the spirit of exploration, and doesn't make sense as we look to the next 20+ years. That we would incorporate that into the city inventory, knowing that the city has other revenue streams that we could rely upon, and certainly the county. Grand Forks County is really more reliant on the property tax versus the city of Grand Forks, so the opportunity to create a enterprise. As part of the other two ramps, I do agree with you, there is no glory in owning a parking ramp. For the most part, because they're usually attached to commercial space, a lot of people, especially in Grand Forks and other communities that are our size. We're resistant to pay significant amount for parking, but it was seen as a win-win opportunity, and that's why we've engaged. So I would say the city council, probably the county commission, they're lukewarm on the idea. Overall, but they were willing to continue to explore the opportunity. And if it didn't work out with the swap, at least we could tell the public that we tried to work together as two entities and try to find a win-win, and weren't able to. So I think we're really at this point, on behalf of the city council and the mayor, is we're here to, let's make a decision and then we'll move forward in whatever that direction is.
I'll be perfectly honest, the concerns that I have is control. Who's gonna control it? We have a lot of clients that come here to pay taxes, to utilize services, to come to appointments, to find out about adopting children, to do a variety of things. And if the 2-hour free parking went away, there would be concerns about that. I come from Kirkston, when I come from work, I go down North Third. I look at the water treatment plant, which is huge, and it's gonna go away. But if you put a lot of housing there, I would be concerned about this would be the closest area for them as a larger entity of land. There may be some small amount of parking there, but not a great amount. Unless underground parking was looked at, but then it could be a river. So I guess, my concern is giving away control isn't a good thing. Yeah, right now, Mayor Bochansky is the mayor, you're the city administrator. But you talk about 20 years, we don't know who's gonna be in charge in 20 years. We don't know what the plan is going to be. We won't be here in 20 years because we have limits. Your city council won't be there in 20 years. So I have to admit that I have a lot of concerns because whoever owns it controls it. And that's a concern. I can tell you who's gonna be the decision makers right now, looking at those of us in this chamber and those that are in the chamber of the city at City Hall. But I don't know who's gonna be in control of either entity in 20 years. I don't know what's gonna happen with housing, if there'd be more housing. I don't know what's gonna happen as downtown becomes larger, more entities to offer. There's just so many questions, and we can't predict the future. That's a huge concern. But right now, what we know is we have clients. We know we have a very active courthouse across the street. We know that we have 300 and some employees, but not all of those 300 employees are here. There's just a lot of questions that are being asked, I think, and we are getting information from the employee association, from program managers, program directors. I guess there's just a lot of concern moving forward that, yeah, this is a win-win. At some point, my concern is that the county's gonna lose. The county loses the property, the county loses. The county doesn't get to say, hey, you wanna change the rate from, what is it, $40, how much a month is it? 35, you wanna change the rent from 35 to 60 or whatever the case may be. I agree that we need to figure out how to keep this ramp viable. But concerns about control, and no disrespect to you, no disrespect to the mayor, to the city council. But they're not gonna be here in 20 years. I certainly am not gonna be here in 20 years. So I guess that concerns me a lot.
Commissioner Page, I think with government entities and certainly, the city of Grand Forks ponders control and I've pondered it over my career too. Should these be assets that we own long term, knowing there's ebbs and flows, in local government? So I think that should be a strategic long-term reason. Is it something worthy of us wanting to control over a long period of time? That's really a fundamental question I would ask yourself, and I think you noted it well. I would be pondering the same thing with our city council too. Because there are gonna be ebbs and flows, and again, I'm likely not gonna be here 20 years from now. And the other thing the city wants to do is we wanna enter a partnership, obviously, with a willing partner, under this win-win, if there is a win opportunity. So that is going to provide for a better chance at a win-win partnership. But if we're gonna enter into an agreement where not everyone's, really wanting to partner, it's gonna be harder for this to be successful, because we know parking becomes an angst for people. And certainly, while I'm sitting there, I don't wanna have to work on a project where nobody wanted it, because it's hard enough to work on some of these projects when people are all in on those things. So I think those are pondered. We are intending to move towards the further south end of the downtown to redevelop in and around the water treatment plant site. So I think this area, if you look in and around City Hall and all the development, we partnered on with private sector entities. I think you're gonna see this, if you look 10 years from now, whomever's here, you're gonna see in and around the water treatment, you're gonna see a vast and different development, and it's gonna be quite exciting. And so we're gonna try to unite, north of the tracks with this area, and I think you're gonna see a lot more activity in and around that park scrap 10 years from now. So I think as part of it, if you did enter any agreement, you'd wanna, if you're gonna reduce your control of something, you wanna make sure you enter into an agreement where you have some flexibility and some ability to control your fate in the law. So I agree with all those things. It's an important decision, and really, we're here truly to be a good partner. But if you, the commission wants to move forward and continue to own it, and again, with, we'll just control from responsibility. So if you want to do that, we're all in, and we'll continue to look for further partnerships.
Thank you.
Mr. Roth.
Mr. Cherry and Mr. Phelan. If I remember right. If the city was going to take over the parking ramp, that you as the city were looking at a $2 million investment from the county to get things rolling on that parking ramp. So we'd have $2 million in it already. So my feeling is we should just retain it. If we're putting 2 million in it, we should just retain it ourselves. So, cause that's a big investment for the county to invest 2 million and then turn it over to city Grand Forks. I got a problem with that.
So it was always a mention about it, is that, certainly the city of Grand Forks didn't want to, I think it was like 1.8 something. We took Mr. Cleven's estimate, it was my numbers, really. I looked at what we had created, I looked at what Mr. Cleven had created to try to find some middle ground between those two estimates and those our consultant versus Mr. Club. We would, as, in all seriousness too, that even if we said it's gonna be 1.82 million or, whatever that number I opted, we would likely ask in agreement that, we wouldn't be capped at that, so if something unforeseen, came up in the construction that, that wouldn't be anything to do, so just to eyes wide open. Well, we wouldn't just say anything over 1.82 million is all on us and we're gonna take 100% of the risk. We would ask to mitigate our risk in that too. And as we tried to find, you have, try to find a way forward that would be, in that case, if you're looking at investing 3 million, is there a way that we could invest less upfront as part of the stuff? So in that spirit, you're doing that, but just so you know, we would want language in an agreement that says that unforeseen things, we would want some sort of an agreement to partner on those things that were unforeseen, as part of it.
Another topic, Carmel Madison is here from the state's attorney's office today, but the one that is out of town. And there's an issue of what to do with a public building. You can't just make a private deal, or even, I don't think you can even make a deal with another agency. But can you bring us up to speed on what Haley was talking about with me the other day?
Because I'm not privy with your conversation, she didn't,
Pretty much just right off the memo that she sent.
and it was her opinion that it had to go to a public sale.
Yes,
Okay, I'm not gonna disagree with her opinion. I did look at that statute and I also looked at another statute regarding a transfer of property for the public sector. And that would also be 11-27 -03.1, which is another subsection. So I think that needs to be explored a little bit further before really any final agreements can be made. And we can report back at the next commission meeting on that. So,
yeah, so maybe we can't make it an agreement with the city in any event. My concerns are two, the staff. We tried to equalize their pay a little bit this last year, for 24. And if suddenly the parking ramp fees go sky high on, that makes it very difficult. But even a bigger problem, I believe, is all the people who come here for services. I just can't see anything that works well for them, whether there be enough free spots, whether. I don't know how you'd accomplish them paying for hourly rates and so on, so those things just, to me, are very difficult to solve, and I haven't heard anything that makes it work. So, I don't think we're there by a long shot as far as my belief in selling the ranch to the city. I am not even close to being there without major changes in what I've heard so far. Yeah, one of them being, if we're gonna spend $2 million, that we have funds for this within the next year. Why would we then spend that on it and not keep the ramp? As Commissioner Ross just said, Mr. Peach said. So, I don't know, any other questions? Commissioner Rusted, Commissioner Hagan, anybody?
I had a quick question. Can you remind me, Mr. Ford, you probably know, so we have the expense to fix up the ramp right now, but the ongoing costs for upkeep of the ramp over the next, I think you said that there was like a 20-year timeline.
Yes, Commissioner Hagan, you're correct. So part of Walker's assessment is a 20-year maintenance plan. And if we were to follow the 20-year maintenance plan, and keep in mind, ma'am, that this does not adjust for inflation over 18 years. The county would be looking to budget $170,000 a year if we were to follow that maintenance plan. Again, Mr. Grishetsky and his crew do a fantastic job with what they have in keeping that ramp up. And so it's not necessarily, we can't confidently say or guarantee that that's what it would cost to keep it up. But it's just a nice plan for us to look at. And I know that Ms. Nelson does keep a different account for the parking ramp as well. So we're looking at $170,000 a year. Or 3 million over 20 years, which was in the Walker assessment.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, there's been some other repairs in the past. In 2019 or 2020, we had a similar assessment conducted on the ramp. Actually, a lot of the findings in Mr. Cleven's assessment were in Perry Johnson, who was the engineer at the time, who did the review. They're very similar. At that time, I believe we were looking at $1 million in repairs. And the funds just were not there. And so the commission asked Mr. Johnson to go back and deliver us the worst of the worst, which we need to get done immediately. So it was south of 500,000. But those are mainly to repair some seals, look at a few of the worst, really bad joints, for a non-technical term. And then filling some of the bad holes in the concrete decks that had significant rebar exposed. And then there's been work done on the drain, and some other, so the county has been putting some of these improvements into place. What I'm trying to get at is kind of what Mr. Clement said, which was in 2019, a lot of these issues were identified and they're coming and rearing their ugly heads again. And we go from $1 million to what the assessment is now. I think the longer the county waits, the more expensive it's going to get. But depending on what the commission decides to do, in the memo I provided the commission, there was recommendations for if the city were to take ownership of the ramp, and then there's recommendations if the county is to retain ownership. And I would look to keep those moving forward, whichever direction the county decides to go with.
Then Nelson, could you refresh my memory on the funds that we have available? Whatever else, just for the next year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, we allocated $3 million to the city for the water treatment plant. And we decided to hold on that, so we have that $3 million in ARPA funds that has to be allocated by the end of this year. So if we don't spend it on the parking ramp or some other project, we have to allocate it by December 31st, 2024.
So we could accomplish these emergency repairs with those funds, couldn't we?
We could.
Mr. Chair,
Go-
irregardless of what happens, whether we retain it or the city comes up with some kind of concept, we need to start the repairs. We need to get rolling on that, the repairs. And I think that Mr. Clevin hit it right on the head when he talked about those joint things that with the stainless steel. I think those are the first things we need to deal with, and we need to deal with it now. So we can't wait for decide who's gonna.
No, I agree, that makes sense. Commissioner Beatty.
Mr. Clavin, I do have a question for you. Obviously, these repairs need to be done, but I'm assuming this can't be done in this fall. I can't say this kind of weather because. But I'm assuming it would be a warmer season that those repairs need to be done, or can they be done in a colder season?
Yeah, they can be done with, contractors have gotten very good about temporary heating and sheltering. But there is no free lunch. So if we plan for cold weather construction, you know, you're gonna be paying for those cold weather conditions. If it seems like I've been ignoring you folks in the back there, I've been texting our design team. To say, hey, can we get something done on paper? Can we get a phasing plan that gives you an option on funding allocation? I'll have answers to that in the next couple days. But to directly answer your question, you could do cold weather, but I'm actually a little more optimistic that we can get something done yet this summer. We've got some virtue in that. We have backgrounds for the structure, we have, you know, precast design plans. We've got a lot of personal record, if you will, memories and recollections, both myself and the rest of the design team. So kind of time to get out of the chute, so to speak, is gonna be pretty quick.
Yeah.
So I'll get those pieces going here in the background. I'll just answer your question by saying, I'm optimistic that the timing is right where we can still get work under progress this calendar year, when it's warm.
Thank you.
Mr. Clem, would you have that information by our next county commission meeting, which would be a week from tomorrow?
Yeah, we can have that. And to be clear, that information would be time frame of a project. And design team capacity to get something executed as soon as possible. And a phasing option and probably a scoping fee that would go with that.
Okay.
So there's actionable items in front of you.
Okay, put you on the agenda for next Tuesday.
Sure. There's certain things you just clear your schedule for now if you want. We appreciate it. Thank you. We do.
Any more questions from the commission, commissioners?
I guess I got a couple things.
Good.
The way I look at it is in a perfect world, financially speaking, yeah, it would make all the sense in the world just to hang on to it and keep it as a county asset. Unfortunately, our financial position to me doesn't really forecast too well for keeping this. And the way I look at it is this swap is almost a financial parachute that we're being offered. And as you probably all have figured out, I tend to run fairly fiscally conservative on matters like this. And so I hate to have an anchor like this holding us underwater and preventing us from doing other projects. And if we wind up keeping it, I would almost have to urge my counterparts to get a very detailed expert compiled preventative maintenance plan to prevent the commission in 20 years from being up against this same wall with the ramp. So I mean, something, and maybe that the same fellow, I'm sorry, I'm gapping his name, that was just speaking, maybe his group or his outfit could put us together a long-term viability plan for the ramp and potentially the grandstands. I mean, because when you're reactive on major maintenance problems and you just fix things as they break, you wind up with, dozens of kiddie pools collecting water in the courthouse, right? So, I mean, we want to set the county up for long-term success with our assets. And so, I mean, I would ask for the same type of preventative maintenance plan for the courthouse, for the grandstands, for the parking ramp, so that we have funds allocated, going line items going forward to basically keep future commissions from having to make difficult decisions like this.
So, Commissioner Rustad, I should have introduced myself. I took it for granted that y'all knew me. My name's Jay Clevin. I work for 82S here in Grand Forks. To answer the question about preventative maintenance plan for the parking ramp, if you look in the appendices of our October 22 report, there's a 20-year cycle of cash flows and projects that are used to derive the $3 million of 20 years of maintenance costs. So that one is very well done, very detailed. Of course, you can pick and choose per year what gets done, but there is a path forward already identified. The grandstand has a similar sort of series of projects identified, not to the same level of cost detail per year. That was a whole series of recommended repairs. And periodically, a small project get done. There's a checkbox next to some of those sitting in my messy desk at my office. So both of those are at some status very well and detailed to reasonably well detailed for planning. I can't speak to the design team for the courthouse, but I suspect they're working on one already as well.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I just wanted to say too that over the years, the prior commission boards have done things to the ramp. over the years. They've changed the flanges, they've repaired the expansion joints, they put drains in, that was in 2009 through 2013, those things were done, so the boards did not neglect the ramp. They were aware and made some repairs.
Mr. Ford, you got anything to add to your discussion?
No, sir.
Good. No other questions from the commission? Any comments? Mr. Hagan, anything further?
I just had one other question, and this might have already been addressed, but I know in Tom's memo, there's a variety of recommendations that the staff, and I know that's some of the concerns that were emailed to me as well, is the allotment of spaces that were going to be available for the people who are working at the county, and then clients who come and visit the county for whatever reason. These requests per se of that, this is what we need going forward, would be able to be put in a contract per se to make sure that that's guaranteed to us going forward. So in 20 years, however long we want to make this contract for, in 20 years, there isn't another decision to make. Oh, by the way, we're taking away the parking ramp from the county, and now we're kind of in, where do people park? So is that something that we would be able to like put in writing? So to make people feel better, like, hey, they're not just going to come and pull the rug out from underneath you and you're not going to have any place to park.
Yeah, we certainly can write a contract with everything well thought out. It's tougher to get the two parties to agree to what those terms are, perhaps.
Right,
That we
right.
don't know. But when it comes to the rates for our employees, when it comes to how to handle the constituents who use our building, and we didn't talk about the juries. We have free parking on the top level of the ramp for juries in the courthouse across the street. Well, when there's a jury trial going on, you sometimes have a lot of people who need parking right around this area, and it's tough on the streets, so, does the district court pay for their parking if the jurors come here? Or do the jurors have to pay it themselves and so on? Lots of different questions, and all of that would have to be covered in a very comprehensive contract. Could be done, but we don't know the answers yet to how people would agree to these various things, so.
Right, I just
Yeah.
want to make sure there was discussion about it. I know that there was a couple emails that I received. People were, I don't know, if under assumptions that would imply that the city would just take it away at some point, and they heard a rumor that, it wouldn't work out the way planned, but obviously we would make sure it would be in a contract with them, so.
Mr. Ford.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Hagan, she refers to the recommendations, and those are my thoughts, where if the commission moves to continue these discussions with the city, those are what I would suggest among other things that might pop up that would go into some form of an agreement.
Sure.
And those recommendations were based off of extensive discussions with facilities, with employees, department heads, reflecting their concerns. And as Mr. Veland said, there's no glory in parking ramps. I have become more than I care to be expert in parking ramps. But yeah, that's Commissioner Hagan, you're spot on. That's why I had included some of those, as if you move on, those are what I would suggest you do some kind of agreement.
Sure, Beach.
Mr. Phelan, I have another question. So, you're coming from the city making this, proposal or talking about this proposal. Is there a guarantee that city council is in support of this?
Commissioner Beach, there is no guarantee from the city council. I think there is a, general recommendation to continue to work with, Grand Forks County on a potential solution. That's what I'm here for, so I have to, whatever, the county commission agreed to, I bring back to the city council. And I think the intent is, getting through an agreement is gonna be arduous and detail related, so that's why we're at this point conceptually. Do we wanna seek to go to the next level? which is gonna require all the details, because it's gonna be a long-term agreement. You're gonna wanna protect your interests, we're gonna protect our interests, but you know, generally, we wanna make this happen, and we're gonna work hard and good faith to make that happen. We're at that phase right now. And so if we don't have that mindset, it should be awfully hard to get to an agreement that we can all live with. And my concern was that if we're not positive and wanna work in good faith, we're gonna spend, we'll spend the next 60 days working on this agreement. And if we can't come to fruition on this, because, you know, we weren't quite eye to eye on things. You've just lost, a couple months. And then, to Ms. Nelson's point, you know, the sands of time we've lost some sands of time to move forward. So that's why we're here early, and I think this is the right way to do it. Hey, do we have a project there or not? If we do, we gotta go to the next step. If we don't, we'll move forward this to the next.
And I realize that the city really wants to see the downtown area become a highlight in Grand Forks. But as someone who shops here locally, tries to shop here locally, you know, I look at, we've got a large mall that tried to sell a portion of it. There's lots of parking there. And I'm not trying to be a smart aleck or anything about that, but with, you know, when you start looking at real estate, I know that in Fargo, people want to be near the river, and because of flooding and things like that, homes had to be moved. But certainly in many areas, they put waterscapes and things, you know, out there so people could see water and ponds and whatever the case may be. That may be something that potentially could be done in an area of Columbia Mall that is up for sale. Or a bank is trying to get some of their resources back on. There could be some waterscapes or things put out there, and it could be lovely. Right now, it's not so lovely. But, you know, certainly something to think about that, and I know the downtown area is growing and people wanna live downtown. But hopefully people wanna live to the south of the city as well.
It's a very good point, Commissioner Beach. We talk a lot about the downtown, and it's been a real success. We've added a lot of value in the downtown that not only the city, but the county is gonna enjoy. Whoever here is 20 years from now, we've had tens of millions of value in our downtown. But yeah, we're all in on the mall, we're all in the south end, we're all in on growing the community, because we know how important the city of Grand Forks is to the county. You know, a large majority of the value of the counties in the city of Grand Forks, so whatever the city does, we know is gonna pay a huge dividend to the county. And so, we're all in on growing this city. And, I would say we've controlled a lot of the downtown development because we had local investors who wanted to partner with the city. And, you guys have been supportive of those tax incentives. When you have outside interests that are involved in our community, similar to the Columbia Mall, it's awfully hard, because we met with them several times, and you can lead the private sector to the water. They have to want to do it themselves. And so, just so everyone knows that we work awfully hard on getting that redeveloped, because it is deflating. And when you look at other communities, malls can work if you have the private sector wanting to make it work.
Thank you very much for answering my question.
Right, any other comments from anybody? Sure.
Yes, I just have a comment, but I can wait.
Who are you?
My name is, Mr. Chairman and member of the commission. My name is Jeff McKinnon. I'm the regional director of Northeast Human Service Center. So we're on the 4th and 5th floor.
There aren't very many people here, so I guess we'll have you talk, but
Oh, no problem.
if we had a bunch of, all of the department heads, we could be here all day.
No problem. Yeah, no problem. And so I just wanted to make, comment specifically just what you guys were talking about as far as like the downtown. So I was down, I worked at our Fargo location for 20+ years, and we used to have a downtown location. And as great as it has been for the Fargo location for downtown to develop, it did price the individuals we serve out of that area.
Sure.
And so we really, individuals we serve are on fixed incomes, and we are very fortunate in Grand Forks here that, the services we have are often walking from the parking ramp. So oftentimes people come to our service, come to here, do the zone stuff, maybe go to Spectra or CBIC, so they may be here for a couple hours, or a few hours. And I just really wanted to advocate, I just think that that is something that's very unique in this, that doesn't, there's nowhere else in the state that does that, that has all the services connected. So I just really wanted to advocate that I think that what we have here is really special. And understanding that, recognizing that we want the ramp to be financially sustainable, but if there's a way we can also have the.
Yeah, that's been a major topic
Yeah.
of discussion and emails from the various departments, and we are well aware
Thank
of
you very much.
some of those things.
Yeah, thank you, Brad. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for coming today. All right. Anyone wants to adjourn? Anyone wants for a committee hearing?
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Second? Keith? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourn.
Wow.